Hello, and welcome to IDG Chit-Chat Live for the week of February 2nd, 2015. On this episode, we will be talking about Genealogy Roadshow Season 2, Episode 4, which was a return to New Orleans. Hello, I am Shannon Combs-Bennett, Creative Director with the In-Depth Genealogist. Joining me this evening are Jennifer Alford, Publisher, Terry O'Connell, Executive Director, and our special guest is Sherry Hudson-Passy from Carolina Girl Genealogy. Welcome, ladies.
Hey,
Hi,
good,
Shannon.
good to be here.
Oh, we're so excited to have you, Sherry. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening.
Thanks for asking me.
So this week's episode of Genealogy Roadshow took us back to New Orleans, which was nice and exciting, I have to say. And this time we were at the Historic Board of Trade. And you know, as always, this is the audience's spoiler alert. You're not to proceed unless you want to know more about the show. So I know Terry and Jen haven't been to New Orleans, but have you, Sherry?
Never. I've driven through it on a trip, but I've never stayed and
Okay, I feel lonely again. But I wanted to say that I liked the beginning segment to set up where the show was. I thought it was a really good collage or montage or whatever you want to call it of impressions and give you flavor and history of New Orleans. Yeah? Did you guys like that too?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's going to give a background of the people they're going to be talking about, the kind of culture and what New Orleans is like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, really liked it, but I like New Orleans, so.
I've yet to go.
I know. Well, the last time I was there, what, Terry?
It's on my list.
Yeah. You guys should really go. The last time I went was, I think it was 2 years ago, and we were there for the, there was a parade. It was the Italian Saint Parade. What was his name? Anyway, we collected beads and got kisses from drunk men, and it was fun. But anyway, we should move on.
But I want to hear more.
That would be after the show.
Okay. I'll keep on my questions for then.
Okay. Well, as always, we have a packed show tonight. So let's get moving. And there were a few topics that we definitely wanted to touch on that we were discussing beforehand in the green room, I guess you could say. And we all thought that the Hurricane Katrina story was a really good lesson for genealogists. What were your impressions, or do you guys want to tell what the lesson was? Sherry, you want to go first?
Making copies, making sure you have backups. Don't let all your things get destroyed in a natural disaster. Don't let your computer go down and you not have anything anymore. So back up, scan, copy. Give somebody else a copy, but make sure you have something else so that if your house gets destroyed, you have your family history.
What about you, Terry?
Send a copy to somebody out of state.
Jen, you gonna agree with all that?
That's very true. And not only, with hurricanes and, we've seen stories of tornadoes and fires and, all of those things can happen, without any notice. So
Right.
it's very important to, consider that, and whether it's backing up to the cloud or making copies of something and sending it off to cousins, all of those things are fairly easy things to do.
Right.
And, we kind of take it for granted sometimes.
Yeah, and he wasn't a genealogist, and they didn't say it. I mean, he had all these documents, and he might have been the family collector, and they just didn't touch on that. But I think it's a good lesson that we can't save everything, unfortunately. Disasters happen.
Right.
Things happen instantaneous that we can't predict or plan for. But as genealogists, and a historian, it kind of was like, oh my God, oh, kill me now, And I think it's a lesson that we should take away that a lot of people talk about still. Everything you said, back up, send copies, start a blog, put it out there,
It's also a good reason to have your tree on Ancestry.
Yes, very true. And so I mean, I was going around Facebook this week. There were the two fires last weekend. One in Russia, in the
Yes.
library that had the largest collection of Slavic documents and books and records in the world.
Something
And
like a
there
million records.
over 1 million records and books were destroyed or damaged in the fire. And in addition to that, here in the U.S., there was the fire in Brooklyn, which was destroyed, damaged, literally spread to the winds. People were picking up papers off of the beach
Oh,
of court records and hospital records from New York City in a fire that, I think it was a 3-alarm fire that happened there.
I
So,
guess those hospital records are public now.
yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
But yeah.
I think a lot of times people are hesitant to send copies of things just because, oh, well, I'm not done researching. Well, we're never going to be done researching. Lord knows.
Genealogy
We'll never be
is
done.
never done.
No, my family history will never be done. So now's the time. Make copies of the important stuff. Even if it's not totally documented or whatever, at least get it out of your house so that other people can have it if something should happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of documentation, there was I thought that some of the record sets were really interesting in this episode, especially, and I know you guys had said that you had never seen the paperwork for the comings and goings out of the U.S. from the time period about the Honduras story.
Yeah.
The passenger list and the paper. What was it called? The entrance and I can't remember. I didn't write it down. It was almost like a passport application type record.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys find that interesting, or because it was a new record you had never seen before?
I've never seen it before, and I thought it was wonderful, and I loved the fact that there was a note on it as well explaining why he was coming into America.
I will search for an
So
answer to wonderful
that was
In
amazing
fact,
to
it
me
was a
that
note.
was on there.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
the description of why, yeah.
I just the personal note written by the mother. I don't think I've ever seen a passenger list with that on it.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That was amazing.
Yeah. So his adopted father. Let me see here. I take notes on these shows because I'm kind of weird.
And we
His
love
name
it.
was his Ripplinger.
Yes, that's
Okay.
Yes.
I thought it was fascinating how they proved the ancestors' history by doing all of the backwards digging on a different. I mean, he's not a collateral line. He's one of those fan lines. I guess he would be an associate,
Mhm.
but all the information. And of course, I was sitting here watching it with my oldest son. And Joshua Taylor goes, and it was a banana republic. And I looked at him and I go, it's not the clothing store. So we had a little history lesson in the middle of the show. I paused it and we talked for a minute.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny too. They even kind of acknowledged that, no,
Right.
not that kind of banana republic.
Oh, I died laughing. Died laughing.
Genealogists have a sense of humor.
We have to.
That's right. That's right. And of course, one more thing, and then I will stop talking about this because I have to say that when he was talking about going to Honduras and all that kind of stuff, it brought home some research I had done for a friend. And I have to tell you this because another record that I don't think a lot of people know about are passport applications. And a lot of them are online at Ancestry. And one of my friends, her great-grandfather was a minister to Honduras through the U.S. State Department from 1915 to 1918. So the same time that family was in Honduras. And that kind of gave me chills because when you do personal research and then you see something similar or connected on TV, you're like, why does this sound so familiar?
That's very cool.
Yeah, it is. But Sherry, you had something similar happen after you watched one of the stories this week, didn't you?
I did. I did the one where the ladies came in, the families came in after they had done the DNA and realized that they had multicultural connections in their families. And the first thing that I thought was how wonderful that they could get past the history of it all and be united as a family. You could see the love
Mm-hmm.
between them, and I thought that was absolutely wonderful because you do hear stories of that happening, and it doesn't turn out quite that way.
Yeah.
So I loved the story, and then yesterday on one of my Facebook groups that I follow, there was a comment that it was an African American woman who put on that she had just done a DNA test, and she found out that she had some connections to my great-great-grandfather and his family. And so I was able to contact her, and now we are trying to figure out where that connection is. So I just thought that was wonderful to have seen that story and then get this connection with her, and then hopefully we can have the same thing. We can find out, where we're connected and get together and meet each other. It could be a collateral line. It could be, we're not sure where. With DNA tests, you don't always know exactly where that person is. It could be one of the brothers. It could be an uncle. It could be, you just don't know. So I'm looking forward to working more with that.
Right.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
It's kind of like genealogical serendipity when things like that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really like that story, well, because they dealt with DNA, so can't help it.
DNA, I think of you.
Aw, that's so sweet. Sherry, did you have anything to add?
And I definitely agree with what Sherry had to say about them coming together united. And it wasn't to, it was to break it down the way they brought it in. The one lady comes in and she wants to find out about the other one's ancestor, like that, and that's what brought the two families together. It was amazing just to see the love and that they truly were a family. It wasn't like, these are my cousins that I met through a DNA test and we just want to know more. It was they were already a blended family. They've already come together and solidified that unit.
Sorry. Yeah. And when they found out that there was 15 children, the comment was, "We have more cousins to find."
Yes, that was cool.
Yeah,
That
was very
is
cool.
awesome. That is very awesome. Yeah, I really liked that. But the one I think that really tugged at my heartstrings, and I think it got the presenter too, was the one about the grandfather who was essentially abandoned by his stepmother. It was a short little segment, but it really
New mother.
gotcha. Yeah, new mom. New mother.
Mom.
Oh my gosh. But I mean, you hear about things like that happening. And it sounded like he didn't either know or didn't realize that his father had died.
Yeah.
Because the story that she told was she took him to school and never came back.
Right?
So did he know that his father had died, or did he assume his entire life that he was abandoned? Which, I just can't imagine that.
Yeah, what kind of impact does that have
Mm-hmm.
on a young kid to think, oh, my family didn't want me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just awful.
And to sit
And then to think that, he's got a sister out there.
and be thinking about her for so many years.
Yeah.
And thinking that recalls the name, and just so sad. So sad.
It was heart-wrenching.
I really was. I was in tears. I really was.
No, it was heartwrenching.
Fair,
And just
fair.
how much it meant to the granddaughter as well, just to know that he was right and he wasn't just, it wasn't the dementia or anything, that he's just making stuff up.
Great.
Very, very heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
And I think as family historians, we have to, there's a lot of really, really good stories out there and a lot of really heartwarming ones. But then there are stories that just when you're doing research for yourself or a client or for whatever reason, and you read a newspaper article or you see a death certificate, or you've become so connected with this family, even if it's not your own, that when you find out a piece of information and it's like, oh God. And I don't think people can I think it's hard to take a step back sometimes, especially when you get really connected to a family. You know what I mean? You never knew these people. Most of them have died, decades, if not centuries before you're born.
Right.
But yet you become connected to them through reading their records, hearing the stories or the letters of their descendants, and you can't just help but put yourself in their shoes.
You'll notice even the people on the show, as they're telling their stories to them, and they'll say, and they died, and they're like, oh, well, of course they died. It was, in the 1800s. But they're so into the story that they're like, oh, so it gets you,
Yeah. It was really, So let's move on to something more happy before we keep going down this trail any further.
Before we get depressed.
I just realized that we didn't touch, every week they've been going to sorry, pointing with my pen. Every week they've been going someplace or doing a little outing. And this week's outing was wrapped up with the Hurricane Katrina story. Have you guys, I know you haven't been to New Orleans, and so you haven't been there before, but did you know that there was a collection at the Old U.S. Mint of historical archives, books and things?
No.
No,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. It makes me think next time I have to go.
Road trip.
Yeah. But I don't know. I thought it was a good way to show how you can recreate lost things, though, kind of moving back a few. We didn't touch on this. Have you ever gone to an archive or repository to try to do that, to try to recreate some lost things, or know that you have original records from your family there and then go and try to find them?
The last time I was at an archives, the South Carolina archives, I was looking for pension records, and I asked for the film number, and the guy comes back to me and he says, oh, I'm really sorry, somebody's using that film. I'm going to have to go get the originals. Oh, really?
Terrible. Terrible life.
So he brings me the box, and as I'm going through the box, not only are the pension records that would have been on the microfilm, but there's letters from people that were writing things like, I am not really dead, please send my pension to, or I can't get there, so please send my money with this person. Things that weren't on that microfilm. I didn't find one for my family, but it was still so much fun to read those. So
the microfilm didn't have the microfilms didn't have everything from the files?
No, they were just the actual pension records.
Oh, that's good to know.
So ask him for the originals. Yeah, ask him to bring that box.
Man, that box.
I went down to the Cook County Archives one time, and I went through the microfilm and pulled out what I wanted. And here you go in and you basically submit your stuff, and it takes a week for them to pull it, and then you go back and go through it all. And the guy was looking through it, and I'm like, I couldn't really read this. I'm not sure what number it is. He's like, oh, let me go get the book. And I was like, oh, okay. I've never seen anything like just, oh, let me go grab it. And it was like, it was all naturalization stuff. And I was like, oh my God, he brought the book to me. I went home, made some calls to my local genealogist, and I'm like, you won't believe what they brought out for me.
Oh, it's great looking at those originals.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, when I was first researching my great-grandfather, Meyer Krieger, I have his certificate of naturalization. I'm fortunate to have that certificate framed and in my hallway, but I really wanted to see his application, his declaration of intention, because I didn't know where he was from. And so the last time this was, of course, a couple years ago, but I went to the LaPorte County, Indiana archives, or no, it was the courthouse, and I just went up to the desk and they're like, "Oh, sure, yeah, you can look in there." And this was before like you couldn't bring in any digital devices or anything, so I totally got lucky. And they open up this like metal door and let me in and close it. Have fun. Left me alone. All these wonderful old naturalization records in these books, and I had, whatever I wanted out of them. And I did actually find my grandfather's declaration of intention and what town he was from.
Awesome.
And I must have like squealed in the in the courthouse. I was so excited.
We know nothing about squealing in public
places.
I
took about 5 pictures of it and copied it and scanned it and everything I could think of. And then as soon as I got out of the courthouse, I called my mom and I told her where our Krieger family had come from. And I don't think she was quite as excited as I was, but it was good to know, because we'd heard stories that he was from Russia, that he was from Minsk, and Minsk is a whole region within Belarus. So we really didn't know for sure where he was from, and this narrowed it down to a small village. So it was
That's awesome.
Exciting.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Woohoo, I got chills.
You never know what you're going to find.
Yeah.
That's right. That is right. So the last story that we wanted to talk about that we thought was had some very good and interesting information was the very last one that was shown on Genealogy Roadshow on Tuesday. And it was one about the woman who wanted to know more about specifically her father's side of the family, but they also looked at her mother's side of the family and discovered that at the same time, in the same town, one family from her father's side and one family from her mother's side, that one of them were free blacks who owned slaves, and the other one was a Civil War, was in the colored troops from the Civil War. And as a researcher, I'm not a native Southerner. Most people know me. I'm from the Midwest, but living in Virginia, I've had to go to archives and stuff and do Virginia research. But I know it's terrible, isn't it? But I've come across there's that mindset, like Kenyatta said, that some people don't know the history of who owned who type of thing, and I thought it was important and a good lesson especially for researchers or people who aren't really familiar with those types of situations, that she brought that up. Mm-hmm. I know you do a lot of Southern research, Carolina girl, Sherry.
I do.
Have you come across that? Because I've come across it in Virginia records.
I haven't yet. Okay. Found a lot of slave owners in my family, which I was very shocked because, as far as I knew, we were just a bunch of lines of very poor people. So I've been very shocked at the amount that I've seen.
Now okay, so I'm from Indiana, right? Mm-hmm. And I have been grew up my entire life being told that my family were abolitionists, and we came to Indiana so we didn't believe in slavery, and my grandfather was in the state legislature in Indiana, and tried in 1950s to put reforms in, and I grew up with this sense of doesn't matter what color your skin is, people are people are people type of thing. Mm-hmm. And when I started really researching into my family, and I found that first slave owner, I had to put my pen down, walk away from the computer, and go. It was 200 years ago, but it was still what? Now, my family, my father and my mother, when I called them, because of course it was my mom's line, and my dad's like, ha, 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 not my family.
Oh gosh.
But my mom, I call them and she's like, "That's impossible. That's not. No, we don't do. No, my family never did that. Blah 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 blah." And I'm like, documents
Yeah.
mailed to you, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's But going back to the subject at hand, some of the records that I have found, like the reasons where they, freed persons had purchased family members.
Yeah.
That was something common. Other ones who were born free, because I mean, especially here in Virginia, owning a slave was, monetary. It was an investment.
Mhm.
Showed your wealth. So of course
Right.
they were
Right.
going to show their purchase a slave, and it was like money. So is that like similar to what you found, Sherry? I know I'm excluding Jen and Tara because I don't think they've done this type of research before.
No. No, I haven't gotten to that. I'm sure some of my Arkansas or Alabama folks might have, but I haven't gotten that far.
I have some Virginia peeps that own slaves, but I've not really looked any deeper into it.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to find an actual list, a list of slaves that one of my great-great-grandfathers owned, the slaves that he owned. And luckily in this, well, unfortunately whoever transcribed it did not say who they were or anything like that. So it's a typed list. But the list actually has generations of the slave mothers and the children they had.
Oh, wow.
And look, and as these children grew up, who their children were.
Wow.
It was a shock to me to see that. I went to the plantation where that he owned and was able to get that from them, and I donated it to the archives and the historical society, so that if anybody, and I blogged about it, so that if anybody is looking for those people, hopefully they'll be able to find them. So
Yeah, that's quite a find.
it was.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So go ahead, Terry. Sorry.
No, but it's really cool that she did all that to make sure that people could find.
Yeah.
Because that's the hardest thing. That is one of the hardest things with African American research is when you hit that slavery wall.
Right.
A friend that I'm helping with his family, we've got back to right after the Civil War, but we can't get any further because, all we know is that some of them were born in Maryland, some of them were born in Virginia, and we're pretty sure they were all slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, where do you go? How do you go? What do you do? So, yeah. So
the only thing you can do is if you happen to know where they were slaves, at what property, what plantation or house or home, maybe there's some records within their records.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the thing. We don't know, so we're stuck because he doesn't know and his family doesn't know, and where do you go? So, yeah, we're kind of stuck there.
Well, a couple years ago, I went to a presentation by Dr. Debbie Abbott, and she does a great presentation about researching slaves. And if you get the chance to ever talk with her, she might be able to help give you some guidance on where to go from there.
Oh, that's a good tip. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So did anybody have any last thoughts on the program for this week that we didn't cover, or you think people need to know about?
I was kind of surprised that they didn't do more of the little short scenes this time. It seemed like they'd kind of limited those compared to previous episodes.
I think they only did 4 this time, which is I think the smallest amount that I've seen.
Yeah. Maybe everybody just had like really in-depth things and they didn't want to spend all the time on it.
It could be because we're in the section where we're going to be going back to towns. I mean, they filmed them the same time, but going back, we might have different types of stories. Maybe more of the in-depth ones, and they put all the short ones up front. I don't know. Be interesting to see how they edit these shows together.
Yeah.
What about you, Terry? Any last thoughts on the show?
Nope, I again, I'm just glad it's on TV and that we get to keep watching.
How about you, Sherry? Anything we didn't cover?
Absolutely. I am so excited every Tuesday for it to come on. So I love everything they do, whether it's big or small.
Yay! Okay, we're good with that. Well, before we close tonight, I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that this week the series lineup for Who Do You Think You Are has been announced, and I'm very excited for the new season. Nobody? Nobody wants to see Who Do You Think You Are? Okay, just checking.
Very excited.
So it's going to premiere on March 8th at 10 p.m. Eastern on the Learning Channel, otherwise known as TLC. And I was looking through the lineup this week and thought there was some pretty amazing things getting ready to happen. We have, real quick in case nobody has heard, we have Julie Chen, Josh Groban, Angie Harmon, Sean Hayes, Tony Goldwyn, America Ferrara, Bill Paxton, and Melissa Etheridge. So it's 8 weeks of good stuff.
Yeah. That's going to be awesome.
Now, because they moved the premiere date, because it was going to be in February on a Tuesday, and now it's in March on a Sunday, we are actually going to be taking a week break from filming Chit-Chat. So this is everybody's fair warning that there will be a week. We're taking a week off between Genealogy Roadshow recaps and then when we jump right into the Who Do You Think You Are. So everyone out there in watching us on YouTube, just remember that. But it looks like our time this evening is up. Thank you, Sherry, for taking time to join us this evening. It was really great having you on the show.
Thanks so much. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Anytime you want to come back, you let us know.
All right, I'll do that. Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome. So remember, we would love to hear from you. So drop us a line in the comments below, visit our Facebook page, like us on Twitter, or send us an email at editor@theinDepthGenealogist.com. And on that note, have a great day, great evening, great wherever you are, and remember to go in depth with all of your ancestors. Bye.